Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025, and you are in the Java Cafe this morning. I'm your host, James Jimmy Hills, and we are excited to have a young man in the Java Cafe who is not a stranger. He's definitely a vet as a guest, but it's always a pleasure to have him here because he talks to us about the services that are offered through the Department of Probation here in Suffolk County. Maybe across the state, I'm not sure. He'll clarify for us. But I just wanted to also mention, as much as the commissioner and his staff there are committed to making sure the information goes out, you all may have seen some news with some things going on at the State House. And I'll just say that their safety is priority. So if at any point I told the commissioner if he needs to put his finger up and say, hey, got to take care of some things or drop off, it's definitely there because their safety is most important. So we're going to bring the commissioner in to talk about the great work that's going on at the Office of Probation. I think, Commissioner, the last time we've had one guest in between your last appearance. It was one of your staff persons that came on and really did a comprehensive breakdown of a lot of the services. I think he's your person that does the day-to-day operations of the comprehensive services. So good morning. Good to see you in the room.
Good morning, Vinny. That person you're referring to, his name is Vincent Laurenti. He is the executive director for the Office of Community Corrections, and that's our program and services component called the Office of Community Corrections. And they have about 18 community justice support centers strategically located around the Commonwealth, predominantly in urban settings that and focusing on our largest code areas, but a lot of it is really just providing a comprehensive array of services beyond and outside what people typically think of probation and the courts and court systems.
Absolutely. I remembered that there was another guest that came in, but that's just a testament to the great work, our relationship and commitment to making sure this information is out there. And Absolutely. It is really my observation of your approach, to this work. And so, Commissioner, I want to give you a second to say good morning. And though you're a vet, we're expanding. We have new viewers. We're in a podcast space now. So if you could give us a little bit, of your journey and the points that inform your philosophy around how you approach this work. And so go ahead and greet the folks, give us a little bit of who you are, and then we're going to get into the current state of things. The PO exam is coming up. You're ensuring that information is out. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate the invite. And again, this is my fourth time on because I think we in the probation world, as well as the Massachusetts Trial Court, has a story to tell that isn't often told to the general public or the people who may have interest in the work that we do. So to give you my background, as you asked, I grew up on the island of Barbados, had a difficult and challenging childhood growing up, had experiences with the law and police, and were it not for the intervention and the $2 bus fare to the local boxing gym or the national boxing gym, I wouldn't be sitting here as Commissioner of Probation. But I started my work. I was a former Golden Gloves champion, Kansas City, former national champion of Barbados, as well as a light heavyweight. So my journey started down that road, and those kinds of interventions helped me. I've been working for the Massachusetts Trial Court now for 32 years. I've held a variety of roles, starting out right here in Suffolk County at the Boston Juvenile Court, working as a juvenile probation officer before transitioning down to the Cape and Islands and working out of Barnstable, Plymouth, and eventually Brockland. Spent 13 years when in 1998, the launch of the Office of Community Corrections. I was a program supervisor there for 13 years, then spent 3 years as chief probation officer of our Suffolk County Superior Court, which for me is probably one of the most difficult courts in terms of management and the types of cases and caseloads we see. Hampden Superior is also just probably equally as tough as long as Middlesex, but Suffolk County worked there. Then I was a regional supervisor, deputy commissioner. In 2018, there was criminal justice reform here that have led to significant gains and declines in recidivism and incarceration rates. A big part of my work was leading the charge on how we could create a pretrial system that created opportunities and accesses and services and keep people from keep going deeper in the system. And then in 2023, November 27th, I was appointed as Commissioner of Probation of the Massachusetts Probation Service. So that's a lot of years in a nutshell, Jimmy.
It's definitely important that people know why you take the approach that you do to this work. I would ask you, that's sort of the individual approach. And as this is, let me get it right, pretrial, probation, and parole supervision week.
Yes.
It's people like you are changing the system. And so it's important this week that we bring attention to that. So can you talk a little bit generally about, the status of things in probation? You have control there, but, everybody might not have the same life experience and philosophy. So how are we doing generally within this week? What are you observing just, nationally and things like that?
So, I'm also, in addition to being commissioner here, I am the president-elect of the American Probation and Parole Association, and that's the national. This has occurred since we last spoke. I was elected.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was elected earlier this year, and I think a lot of that election, and it was a national election, was on the strength of the work and the success that we're having here as a probation system. And so, when I think about pretrial probation and supervision week, this is really about how nationally, and not just nationally, but internationally, I just came back from Morocco training their prison and criminal justice system and how to develop a probation system that mirrors some of the work that we're doing here. So we're not just being recognized nationally. International folks are calling because they believe in the model that we're doing here. But this week really is about celebrating the work of all of the folks that are working in community supervision or community corrections, however you want to use that language. And it's really about understanding that probation goes beyond the concept of sending people back to prison and jail or being difficult people. The average probation officer, who works for us here in Massachusetts have a master's degree and significant more than 8 years experience working in that field. So we're talking about people that have got significant skills around mental health, substance use treatment or substance use disorders, understand the socioeconomic drivers and how poverty and lack of access in education and employment and housing all can come together and create some difficult circumstances as to why a significant amount of people in our system not only come to the system as a result of those factors, but, remain entrenched in a way that I think isn't necessarily helpful to them or helpful to their community. So our approach in probation is we see ourselves as delivering a service. We see ourselves in the customer service business in many areas and entities. And sometimes people don't necessarily make the link. They see us as part of the court and part of a system that sometimes haven't always provided the kind of results or outcomes and the disparate types of sentences that haven't always been kind to people of color. And I think I bring the philosophy that if we can continue to help people really at the margins, right now we're spending close to about $16 million. And I do want to thank the legislature and the governor's office and any other persons that really provide the kind of financial support, even though we're going through some financial challenges as we speak, to really support the work that we do. But we really are focusing on people and understanding that if you are dealing with some of those socioeconomic drivers and mental health and substance use issues, that you could end up in the system. And so we really are focusing on how we go about, addressing these issues. One of the things that has really been a significant movement for us, we have reduced the number of conditions in Massachusetts from 22 to 16.
Hold on, Commissioner, because I want to set up my question only because my question was going to be after you finish that point. And again, congratulations on you taking that approach, to an international national status. Right. And one of the things I was going to do before you jump in, you come with receipts. You always come with receipts and data around. So give us any updates around, the impact. You always tell us X amount of these people have done this and that. So I wanted to get my question in before.
So right now, so I'll give you some data points, of who we are working with every day, in Massachusetts. And on any given day in the Commonwealth, we're supervising about 47 or working with about 47,000 people across the Commonwealth. We've got probation departments in 105 locations. We've got the 18 community justice support centers. We are right now, as it speaks, when you combine, and probation is broken down into a number of categories. We've got administrative cases. So those are folks with lower level offenses that might have to pay fees, fines, or complete some condition that a court but doesn't require risk need. We're supervising close to 17,000 individuals in that population. When it comes to risk need cases, and this is across the juvenile, the district, the superior, the Boston Municipal Court, and the juvenile court, we're supervising about 10,000 individuals. And those individuals, the risks run from low or minimum to moderate to high to very high. And the higher, as it speaks, there requires significantly more contact and monitoring and programs and services. We've got about close to 10,000 pretrial cases that we're monitoring and tracking for the courts. These are people whose cases aren't disposed of yet. And then we've got about another 9,000 in cases where we're supervising individuals who are driving under the influence of liquor. Sometimes you'll hear folks use the language DUI or DWI, but we call it driving under the influence of liquor here in Massachusetts. And so over the last 3 years, and we continue to maintain that trend, we have reduced our probation violations around 44%. And that is significant because nationally and internationally, the biggest driver of sending people back to prison and jail are probation violations. And we have expanded our treatment services, our programming. We are conducting more administrative hearings at courthouses as to avoid taking people into court. We know accountability is a big part of the work. So when we need to hold people accountable, we use that as a last resort and not necessarily as a primary driver in how people end up in prison. And as a result of that, the prison incarceration rate in Massachusetts over the last 3-4 years have been around 41-42%. We are ranked by the National Center for State Courts, as well as the Council of State Governments Council of State Governments and Pew Center for the States as the state that sends the fewest people back to prison as a result of a probation violation. So I'm talking to you the things that we're achieving here in Massachusetts in a way that no other state in the country is even close to the kind of outcomes that we're having.
Commissioner, I don't want to get quote unquote political, but I have found lately that it is imperative that accurate information is in community in reference to things going on. And there's been a lot of, budget season, and you acknowledge the governor and the legislature's investment in these places, but there have been some things in the media that may potentially lead some people to think that this type of work is not happening and the impact is going on. It's a little off the cuff question, and Corey may get me for this, but we're aware that there's things going on with defense attorneys and whatnot. You mentioned about how you're approaching bringing people into court and whatnot. Is there any impact from what's going on with that on your constituency? You're trying to support them, and then if in the worst case scenario, it was just a thought, Commissioner, and please excuse the impromptu-ness of the question.
So here's my safest way to answer the question.
Yes.
Look, we again, I just mentioned the number of people we have on probation supervision that are risk need. On any given day, any number of those individuals are in violation. So yes, that's having an impact. We work for the court. We work in courtrooms. So what is going on around attorneys and that issue is absolutely having an impact on the courts. And our response really is to continue to monitor and supervise people in the way that our supervision standards require. We're paying close attention to violation and violation rates. We're being reasonable as to not, if somebody doesn't, if somebody presents a risk and a danger to the court, we have to address that and deal with that, the best way we can in the system. So I think, hopefully that is a matter that resolves itself, because yes, it is having an impact on people's rights. But I think, as you just saw, a Supreme Judicial Court ruling on the Laval decision that impacts Suffolk County and Middlesex to the degree that it does, and so I think the court is taking every steps to be fair, to be careful, but at the same time, make sure that public safety is maintained at a high level.
Absolutely. And I one of the things there, as you were talking, I was just thinking off the cuff as well, it ties into the work that you're doing to prevent folks in your community. And I say community there because I know that that's how you approach, serving those
Absolutely.
community there. Absolutely. And so I just wanted to reiterate the fact that it's the last resort. Yes, there's an impact. And then also the work is focused on not allowing your constituency to get to that point as much as you can support them. And so, Commissioner, I wanted to ask, that's sort of the your approach there within that department. And so there's an opportunity to come and be a part of that great work. And so I know that the probation officer exam is coming up very soon.
Yeah. So the probation officer exam is going to be offered on November 15th, actually later this year. I got to double check the date, but nevertheless, it is an opportunity for individuals who are interested in the exam. I know that the registrations are coming in, but we want to make sure that we attract a diverse, dynamic pool of people. There's an especially need for diversity within our probation ranks. It is important. If you talk to any one of our chief justices or court administrative and judges, it is important that our staff and people speak the same languages, come from the same backgrounds of the people and the communities we serve. So we continue to our last three classes, more than half of all of the graduates, except this last one, were from a diverse background. So we continue to see significant increase. In 2017, when we started, not necessarily measuring the data, but we had about a 21% diverse staff, and that rate is now 32% and continue to climb, and we'll continue to do that. The entrance exam for the registration for the probation exam began on June 9th. September exam is September 15th. It's a $100 fee. There's also a hardship allocation for individuals who can demonstrate a hardship. So if you don't have the $100, there's a way that you can request that fee. But a big part of this really is how we continue to build the system, but also bring in people from the same communities that we work with and deal with, and sometimes from disadvantaged and marginalized communities.
I wanted to make sure, and forgive me for 1 second, just I was putting the link on if you're watching on Java with Jimmy, the hyperlink is right there, Commissioner, so we can make sure that everybody can go directly and get the information. And that's one of the things that stands out, the intentionality around bringing folks into this space that have similar life experience. I have to also note the spring semester, I had the opportunity to teach and be a fellow at Salem State University.
Congrats.
And the thing that was so amazing to me was there were social work and criminal justice and behavioral health and criminal justice dual tracks where folks so I was just thinking about, to your point, that there is sort of this shift of this generation, I think, taking a different approach to social justice. They're taking the mental health lens. And so all that to say that, if folks are out there and are looking to have an impact, they want to be in a criminal justice space, but you also bring with that your life experience and your background in mental health and social work, I'm going to ask you a question, Commissioner. Are those the type of candidates that you're looking for?
Look, yes, those are the folks that we're looking, but we're also hiring people with educational backgrounds. We're hiring people from any number of different across the social science fields. So I think if you're working in social science, and if you've got as a line probation officer, we're looking for individuals with 3 years of experience plus a bachelor's degree, or if you have a master's in 1 year and 1 year of experience, those are spaces. But I also want to tell you, we also have associate probation officers that just require a high school diploma. And those are the officers that are working in the courtrooms. They're working the counters, they're tracking and monitoring administrative and pretrial cases, and they're documenting the activity in the courtroom. And so we've also had a sizable part of our population of who people come in who with no degree and work their way from administrative to associate. They get the degree and they become probation officers. Some of them are deputy commissioners, chiefs, at every level of the organization. So there's a path. If you're interested in probation work, the only path isn't always the exam, even though we like to have that exam pool, but we provide opportunities. But if you're working in education, social science, mental health, even healthcare related fields, we think all of that matters. A significant portion of our people are dealing with mental health and substance use addiction, but they're dealing with all the other aspects of it. So if we've got workforces that bring all of those skill sets to bear, we can really tackle the issue at, on a broader scale level. Where, in the past, we were interested in people who had law enforcement backgrounds and they didn't run a mile and a half well, so they became probation officers. That's not. Come on, Jimmy, don't make me laugh.
No, I'm sorry. What you mean there is that they went to they took the local law enforcement exam, they got through that part, and then when you had to take the physical piece, but Commissioner, the way you framed it was just kind of cool.
So I'm going to get in trouble for that, but here's what I'll say to you, and so the philosophy back then was really a hard edge, and the prior commissioner to me, Edward Dolan, used to say, there was a time where we would trail them, nail them, and jail them. And that philosophy is long gone. We really, we're spending, through federal grants as well as state legislative funding, we're providing funding for sober housing. And we know that a lot of our individuals are coming out of prison and jail or on probation, and they're struggling with home insecurity or unhoused. And we know that trying to get people to find jobs, stay sober, stay clean, are all difficult when you're struggling to find a roof over your head. So we're trying to provide a dual approach to housing and treatment. We've got about 25 of our employees around the Commonwealth who are enrolling people into MassHealth. So when you come to a courthouse now, you're being arraigned, one of the standard questions is, do you have health insurance? No. All right, fine. Here is this person who can work with you and contact you to help you to see if you had it, re-enroll you, or start a new application and enroll you right into the system. And so we're doing a lot. We've got a massive text messaging system now that if you get arraigned at a courthouse, every individual can sign in and opt to get their reminders to reduce warrants. And we saw the reductions in 3% across the board in the issuance of warrants for individuals who sign up for text messaging. We had more than 100 community engagement events last year, and we're looking to duplicate that. And part of it is we want to build trust and connection with communities across the Commonwealth.
Can I ask you one question, Commissioner? There is, I see a couple of folks online that I know that do this work. Sandy Hamby is getting ready to launch something, and she wants to tap in and support. It's more around reentry, specifically when young men are coming home. And then we also have folks from Yard Time who are on here as well, Brother Joey Bennett. How important is community partnerships and entities that, support not just brothers? Let's also name that it's not just men that are a part of the community there. It's women as well. But we often, unfortunately, just always and I know the numbers are probably greater, but how important it is having these community partnership with entities that support men and women. Are they part of the ecosystem of success?
So look, we cannot do the work of probation without community partnerships. At the heart of everything that we do, is our mental health, our treatment house facilities, our programs, our services, our collaboration and partnership with sheriffs, the Department of Correction, local and state police. We work, the Department of Public Health, the Department of Mental Health. But in terms of, private nonprofit organizations, the bulk of the people we work with get a significant amount of their treatment from there. So we're always looking for partners who can provide. On the reentry front, our 18 community justice support centers are our primary first stop locations for individuals. We're providing them with transportation. We're providing them with, some backpacks with a bus pass or Uber pass. We're providing with socks, gloves, toothbrush, toothpaste, and that might seem like nothing to a lot of individuals, but if you're coming out and you don't have transportation to get to a direction, we try to help you with that. If you don't have, cold socks, last year we raised more than 10,000 pounds of food during our annual food drive. We gave out jackets, clothes, socks, gloves, hats. Our folks are going out and holding sealing and expungement clinics all across the Commonwealth because we think it is important that we are our community. And as much as we're a court system, we are people first. We got families, and you know, on day, but for the grace of God, go me or you or anyone else, because we're not always making the best decision. We just had job fairs. We're running parenting programs. We're running fatherhood and motherhood programs. We're doing sneaker and shoe drives. So this isn't your grandfather's probation service.
You better hold on, Commissioner. I need to get that on full screen. Can you say it again?
We are no longer your grandfather or grandmother's probation or trial court system. We are a system and a court that cares. We are about providing. We don't see as a place where, you know, people are sent to prison or jail or where we resolve disputes. We are community courts. We are resources. We try to provide people with service and assistance first. We are, you know, I mentioned earlier the conditions of probation. We reduced those from 22 to 16. We changed a lot of the legal language that many of our people cannot. We've simplified it. We've changed it in the first person. Instead of saying you shall, it now says I will. And we're working to communicate, to build more rapport. You know, we're in the process of reviewing all of our standard policies and practices to simplify. We've translated them into the trial court on any given day can provide language access services in more than 140 languages. You know, we've translated it, our probation conditions now into the 10 most common spoken language that you in trial court. So if that sounds like a punishment system, there's nothing that we can do to change that perception, but we're really into helping people with services and supports.
This is one of the reasons why when CORI reaches out, it's a no-brainer, because it just, you know, I was being a little, you know, joking, and I want to get the clip and whatnot about this is not your grandfather's and grandmother's probation system. That's the thing that I want to employ people to really keep in mind. Like my thought is, as aunties and uncles and folks are listening, and I know at one point maybe they're, you know, a family member or a friend, yo, my PO, da 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 da. You can now refer and point them to someone that says, hey, you may have had that one situation, but they're really trying to change things. Because I've seen people. I have a nephew right now that was recently violated, and years ago did what they made a bad decision, as you said. Excellent single father, working and hustling jobs, wouldn't work to be able to pick him up from daycare. And you know what I'm saying? And so it was just a thought. I'm sorry, Commissioner. It is just imperative that people understand that this system now, if they're in it by whatever decision they made, it's not this punitive approach. And so, you know, to my question earlier about you giving that update, you're now that president with this national system, and you saying that you just came back from Morocco?
Yeah, myself and, you know, the National Center for State Courts, John Baer, who was our former court administrator, who reached out. The government of Morocco they're looking to establish a probation system. And so they took a look at Massachusetts and thought that ours would be a great model given the kind of outcomes. And so I just came back from a trip there. We spent, you know, 7 days just training, a number of days training their people and working with their National Center for State Courts on how to build from scratch a probation system. In fact, they're sending a delegation here on September 15th through the 22nd to come and be trained at our probation academy, tour our courthouses, talk to some of our judges, talk to our probation people, talk to the folks from the Department of Correction to understand how to build a system from the ground up. And they're going to be basing it off of Massachusetts. And this was all sponsored by the United States Department of Justice.
I heard DOJ, and yep, Commissioner, it's good to know that there's still some good things being done in DOJ. I said that, hold on. I said that, the commissioner didn't. Commissioner, I'm going to get ready to get you off this. Commissioner, no, seriously, I appreciate you. And you know, I'm also thinking of something I learned when I was little, where they say little by, big things get done. Little by, battles are won. And we can't dismantle systems that have been in place for decades and centuries overnight. And so it's the little foxes that go in and destroy the vine of inequities and things like that. So I'm glad to know that you're there. and you're having that influence. And shout out to the governor and the legislator and everybody, that works with you and supports you, and your colleagues and superiors and subordinates that are trying to just change the narrative around the legal justice system.
Well, look, if you spend, and I hope sometime you'd have either the court administrator or chief justice on, because when you listen to them talk, nothing I'm saying is differential from what they're focusing on: access to justice, equity, and fairness. And in spite of what is going on around the country, we stay the course because we know that a fair and transparent system with equal access and justice for all is something that is important. So those, I urge you sometime, because I am not saying anything that they're not messaging, that they're not talking about. Our Chief Justice of the SJC, Kimberly Budd, is also driving a lot of this work. And then our District Court and Superior Court Chief Justices. So I am part of a broader team that is really committed to improving outcomes for people, and the results are shown in Superior District, juvenile. We've got 512 juvenile cases that are risk need, one of the lowest levels ever in the history of the Commonwealth.
That's across the state.
Across the state. And
here's another. Sorry,
those are risk need cases. I mean, we've got care and protections, we've got pretrial, but supervising, and so it's telling you that the interventions are working on the care and protection, on the children requiring assistance. And yes, we still got work to do there. But we've got a full-throated, comprehensive system that is looking from children from the day they come in contact with the court until somebody we have on supervision as an adult. So this, by the way, the last thing I do want to mention, we've developed a comprehensive program to focus on emerging adults, children between the ages of 18, people between the ages of 18 and 25, 26 years old. We know the brain science tell us that that's also one of our highest risk groups for reoffending. And the trial court with the SJC and the executive office, they're pushing really hard to have a rethink about how we work there. We're also getting into the restorative justice pilots that are running here in Suffolk and soon to be in Brockton and other locations.
So the court system is going to oversee restorative justice sort of sessions and.
We have already, they've launched Roxbury. So, look, again, as I said, this is not your grandfather's trial court. We are looking to try to find and help people at every margins. But again, we always focus on how we can best also support victims, survivors. And so I think you've got to come in and spend some time to understand the scope and the breadth of the change that has occurred within our system.
Commissioner, one of the things that I can personally attest to is your points about the chief and other staff there. Remember, I was there, I think it was last year.
Yes.
And the energy in the room was all of this that you're saying. I remember Kyrie.
This is with Tyreek when we were Tyreek.
Yes, when Tyreek was there. But that was it. This is not just, with all due respect, this is not just you. The sentiment of what we was hearing in the room, the commitment and the celebration of community, that every staff person that I encountered there that day.
Yeah.
Shares that. So it seems like they share that philosophy and approach to community.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think and inherent in that is the recognition is that we've got to do better and we will do better.
We all have, I say canyons, people say room for improvement. We all have canyons for improvement. And so that's just across the board. But knowing that people like you are in these spaces, pushing the change and again, little by, having that long-term influence is definitely encouraging. So again, we just wanted to remind folks before we let the commissioner go, no matter where you're watching, you should be able to see the link with the exception of probably LinkedIn, where most folks are watching the good commissioner. But you can go and navigate to get to the exam. If something you heard from the commissioner today, there's a lot of career changes going on. There's a commissioner. Few months ago, the governor launched, there's some updates with federal employees. I'm going to say this, y'all federal employees that might need to check out the exam. I'll just leave that there, Commissioner.
Yeah, look, I mean, we welcome people with experience and work in this things. And I think for those folks that you're talking about, this is a real exam to bring their expertise within the probation service. While I'm here, I do want to give a shout out to the men and women of the Massachusetts Probation Services, given that this is Probation Supervision, Pretrial Probation Supervision Week. But I also want to give a shout out to the rest of the trial court. Collectively, we are without each entity working together, we're not going to have the results that we're seeing across the Commonwealth.
It is. And there you go again, just of who you are, just making sure that, you credit, the folks that are working with you. And I love how you say, I'm so old, I say the Department of Probation or whatever. You say probation service.
Yeah.
Words matter.
Yeah.
So even in that. All right, Commissioner, I appreciate you, sir. Please let me know if I can be helpful, and Coria can connect us with the chief or administrative folks there, and we'd be glad to have them on, because it's just imperative to know that even if you made a decision and you were in the system, there are people in the system that are working to support you while you're in it, but also pushing to quote unquote get you out.
Absolutely.
Successfully.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you for having me on, and again, it's always fun, and maybe someday we'll connect in Boston and grab some oxtail or some pot pies or something.
I'll take the oxtail pot pie.
Well, you're gonna have the full soup with the oxtail. You pick it, we do it. So
listen, I'm always there for some food, Commissioner. So again, I appreciate you, and I don't negate that you have the farm and all the other stuff that you doing right. Yeah, I see this stuff sometimes on socials. All right, sir. Thank you for being here, and safety to you all and your colleagues and whatnot there. Thank you so much.
All right, and I'm sure you'll give shout out to Coria. So thank you, Coria.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know she in the background running things and what you call it. And eyes got big when I asked that impromptu question. I'll get a text later. All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Hopefully, folks, you got some encouraging information. If you know folks who are in the system, in the probation service system, not the Department of Probation, but in the probation service system. So please share that information with them while you're encouraging them. Have you talked to your PO? They're there to help. So say that too. All right. That's it for me this morning. We're going to get ready to wrap up. Please plan to join us tomorrow morning. I am so excited to have charter member Stan Jenkins, along with his colleague, Dominique Dom Diggity Gould, who will be in the building, and also Milton. He's on here somewhere, I'm sure. Will be in the building as well to talk about their event coming up around Peace on August 16th. So it's Thankful Thursday tomorrow, and we're going to talk about events. Don't forget the event on Sunday. Ma and Mother Lisa, we got everything set up. I talked to Erin yesterday. So Mama Java, Sharon, if you want to come to the extreme event, a couple of the mothers are going to be able to meet each other. And so update on that. Also, don't forget this Saturday, July 26th at 9 p.m., the Madison Park Alumni Association is having their party from 9 to 2 a.m. We're honored to receive a Life Achievement Award with Miss Shauna Jackson, along with Coach Wilson, and along with Miss Judith Baker. And so that's going to happen as well. And also, don't forget tonight at 8 p.m., we have Brother Mathematics that will be coming in for Java After Dark. We did have that plan last month. It didn't happen. It is happening tonight at 8 p.m. So we'll see you back tonight at 8 p.m. We'll give all the other announcements later on this evening. I think that is it. Tashad, good to see. Oh, I got to get the D7 stuff out. Tashad, good to see you in the building. Hope all is well with you. And I think that is it. October 15th. Keep that in mind for the anniversary Red Cup celebration, 5-year celebration. I forgot what Sean said we're going to call it. But all right, folks, I am going to eat and drink. Miss Teresa, good to see you in the room. Milagro and others. Sharon Cornelius. My brother Carlton is in the room. Also, Sandy, I said good morning to earlier. Ari over on Instagram. Also, Michelle Evans, good to see you in the room. Mother Lisa, Sister Debbie, and also I think I got everybody. Nicole, Nisi, good to see you in the room. All right, I think Donna, good morning to you. Good to see you in the room. All right, folks, we'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. for Java After Dark with Brother Mathematics. Miss Teresa, the Brown Sugar event as well is on, October 16th is just on October 16th. Miss Teresa posted that information. And so we'll get through this Saturday, and then we'll start talking about the Brown Sugar event. And then we also have a date coming up with the Museum of Science. And so, yes, busy, busy, busy. All right, folks, we will see you tonight at 8 p.m. for Java After Dark with Brother Mathematics. And yes, Allah will forget you. Alexa, Yard Time Cookout, it's coming. Also save the date for Yard Times Cookout over in the Mission Hill area on September 6th as well. Saturday, September 6th. Please keep that date in mind as well. Ari, thank you for the reminder. All right, folks, tonight at 8 p.m. We'll see you soon. Talk to you later.